All right, let's do it.
So, we're continuing with our 10 for 10 series, Luca Nation. Welcome back, and it's really, really, really good to have you guys here. The support has been incredible, and it's allowed us to get amazing guests. I'll tell you, we've had some special guests, but I have a feeling that today's conversation might be the most educational one you have. And the reason that is because the gentleman that's sitting in front of me, the handsome gentleman in front of me, he's kind of had his feelers in the hobby everywhere. You know, he's owned an LCS, he's created cards, he's in the distribution game now, and he's one of the most respected men in the hobby. And I'm really, really excited to have him on. And I even have like a little bit of butterflies because you're such a living legend in the hobby. You guys might know this name, Karvin Cheung. We met in the Lameme group, so really shout out to the Lameme group for putting us together. But we got to know each other a bit more at National, and I thought it was imperative to bring him on for the show today to share his wisdom, his experience, his knowledge with our sports card community. So without further ado, Karvin, I want to welcome you to the show and the 10 for 10 series.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm honored to be a guest here with such presence of greatness in front of me here.
I'm going to be quiet a lot of this one, Luca Nation. I got to tell you because, I got a chance to spend some time with Karvin. And, if you guys think I can tell stories, this guy's got stories. It's great stuff. I mean, it really is. Karvin, everybody hears about all your background, all the, the exquisite stuff. And I'm sure we'll touch on that and you name it and what you're doing now. But, maybe just for the benefit of the listeners, how'd you start in the hobby? Like, when did you start collecting?
Well, it goes back to when I was a child. There used to be on the playgrounds, it used to be called scrambles, and guys would just throw commons in the air, like all the older kids and all us younger guys were kind of geek out. And I remember one of my first cards was like a 72 or 73 card. Obviously, it was a few years old already, and I grabbed it out of a puddle, wearing my snowsuit or whatever, and I was all wet, but I was just so proud. I had a ripped, creased, green border hockey card that was in action, and I was just like so proud of it. And then of course from that point on we get into like the card games where we had like not card flipping but more like knocking down or farsies, we used to call it, like the card that goes closest to the wall. So we damaged our cards obviously back in the day in the 70s. But then cards become geek culture. Like when you get to like 11 or 12 back in the 80s, it's like, you're still collecting hockey cards? What are you, a child? So, and I always knew that cards would be valuable. I'm a pack rat by nature. And, if you ever saw my house, you would know that I keep everything, even like flyers, newspapers, all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's not a good thing for my wife and my family. They'll throw it all out anyways afterwards. But, I'm a pack rat, and I always felt that sports cards would have value. Obviously, the game changer as well as when I was in university and I saw 89 Upper Deck. The double photo on front, photo on back, the holograms, the white version stock paper, and of course the card number 1. Who can ever forget that card number 1, the Ken Griffey Jr. that he was drafted in, I believe 2 years prior to that. So, that was the game changer. And at that point, I was a collector. I opened a lot of products, but at that point I started transitioning and saying, hey, I remember going to, I believe it was called Walmart back in Virginia. It was just an unknown, like, big box retailer, and I found like just boxes and boxes of 89 Upper Deck, and I was like, man, I love this stuff. Even though all these OG dealers and collectors, when I went to a show in Virginia, they kept on saying, you gotta buy T206, you gotta buy 52 manuals. I'm like, oh, that's old stuff. I don't care for that stuff. I'm into the new stuff. Maybe.
And these Upper Deck boxes at Walmart, they're just sitting on the shelves, right? No one's fighting for these boxes. You could just go in and buy.
No, I think they rolled them out, and I just took every single box, and then everyone that wanted a box from me, I just got it because I was paying like $6 a pack back in Canada. So originally I'm from Toronto. I'm Canadian by heart. So I guess there must be frozen blood in me. So I'm a hockey fan, but truly, I grew up as a fan of basketball in the 80s with Showtime Lakers. But with that being said, in '89 I started transitioning. Had a flea market. I had 2 flea markets. And then eventually I evolved into an LCS in the 90s. At that point, late 90s, I went into distribution in Canada. And throughout that time, one of my dreams, I opened a ton of product back in the 90s. So if you talk about historical data on 90s, I can tell you how hard a red PMG was to hit back in the day, or Super Raves and all this stuff. They were just crazy hard. The volumes were pretty substantial. And there was no game used or autograph at that time. So when afterwards, a few years, one of the distributors hired me. Moving forward, I got to meet Upper Deck, and it was kind of like a dream job. Man, I wish I could create cards, right? It's almost like, when you're young, you want to be a baseball player, a hockey player. And then when you get to a point where you're in your 20s and that dream has already passed us, creating trading cards is a dream. So, I was on feedback panels. I gave a lot of ideas, suggestions, brainstorming ideas. And then when the time came, an opportunity for me to move down to California to join Upper Deck, which was the company that kind of got me back into the trading cards, I jumped at the opportunity. One reason is I've always been a California fan. Before Toronto had teams in the NBA, I was a Lakers fan. Before the Blue Jays existed, I was a Dodgers fan. So California, Disneyland made sense. So I made the trip. The one aspect of it was that even though I was probably taking a huge substantial pay cut, one of the things I kept on remembering in my mind, if I don't go in 5 years, I'm going to say, why didn't I go? So instead of having to ask that question 5-10 years later, I said, let's just do it and then move forward.
Karvin, I'm curious, first off, that's an amazing story. And I was interested, were other people in university with you collecting as well when you were, 80, 88, 89? But how does someone go from starting a flea market, owning an LCS, to now being a card designer of such a prestigious deck, such a prestigious company like Upper Deck? How do you go from LCS to going and designing cards? That's quite a leap, no?
It is. But this is what I'll say. Sometimes people look at businesses or going into something they love as an ROI. Immediately, it's a financial gain. There's also something known as passion. And I always believe that if you believe in something strongly and there is a niche for it, or there's collectors out there, then in my case, but if you follow your passion, there's always a long-term plan for you. So just, always think of, if I'm passionate about something, I'm doing something I love, just follow your path.
This is amazing because normally I just get this from Andrew. The passion, follow your path. There's a plan for you. Put it out there in the universe. Karvin, I love it, but there is an important piece that he's leaving out. All right, Karvin was being paid $400 per week, the measly sum. But at Upper Deck, they had the printing presses going in the basement. They had them going 24/7. So for every dollar you earned, they just gave you a Griffey 89 Upper Deck. They just kept printing them. So he got 400 Upper Deck 89 Griffies per week. That's how they paid their employees. I'm just playing. Karvin, listen, I love that because, a lot of us, especially what's funny is, I'm not going to talk too much this episode because I'm already I'm dumbstruck. I'm like, look at this guy. He's got these successful businesses and he's like, you know what? I just always wanted to design cards. I loved it as a kid and I'm going to go design cards. I'm going to work for Upper Deck. I'm going to take a huge pay cut. I gotta stop just for 2 seconds because this hammers home a point that I've realized over 400 episodes of doing this, and I was not taught that. I don't know, did that come from your parents? I have no idea. I was taught that you go to college, you get a job in middle management, and one day you die at your desk. And the passion project, and a lot of our people out there are laughing probably because that passion project, you can't take it because you're going to lose too much money. You can't pay your bills. You're too old. That time to take that opportunity has passed. And I kind of jumped on one with this podcast because of my handsome partner over there. And I'm glad I did. Obviously, I'm still able to do my job, so I have a nice safety net. But it's amazing to hear someone like you say, I was successful. I was making money. I was doing well. I had all this stuff. But you know what? This dream job came up. And there's something to be said about if you follow something that's your passion, there's a plan for you. And I mean, that's amazing. Already, I'm loving talking to you. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there because it's just not everybody does that. A lot of people would say, I'm going to do a pro and con list, and the pay cut is too much of a con, and not take that jump. And obviously, the card collecting world is glad you did because of some of the things that you made.
Well, I'm just lucky to have that opportunity. Everything fell into place, and then I got the opportunity to move down to California, which I still live in California right now. Maybe in the long term, I may move back for family reasons back to Canada. There's that possibility that in the next few years I would do that. I mean, I never thought that I'd be here for 20 plus years in California. And it wasn't like I packed up my bags at a young age. I moved at a pretty older age, not midlife, but getting close to midlife. And that's when I packed up with no family on my own, single, and coming down to California. But it was always a dream of mine to come to California. And, when we talk about, you always have to live life with no regrets. And I didn't want that hanging over my head that I didn't take that shot. Be it, 2001 was a tough time. I mean, we saw I remember going down and watching, baseball, and Darryl Kyle passed away, I think. And then all of a sudden, right after that, it was 9/11. And I was like, what the hell did I do moving down here to California, away from my family? And then all of a sudden, the whole world was just stopped and halted. So it was a different time at that point. But, everything fell into place and things got better. After that happened, I saw how united the country was, and we all had a common enemy at that time, and it was great to be somewhat of a green card holder, but now I'm an American citizen, so dual citizenship, Canadian and American.
So this is going to be a little bit interesting interview because we're going to jump around. We're going to come back because I do want to hear about from 2000 to 2010 might be the most iconic time in card history, and the gentleman in front of me had something to say about that. But this is a show about the National, so we're not going to be talking about all of Karvin's successes and all the beautiful cards he made. How many Nationals have you been to, Karvin? How many events?
So the first ever National was, I thought it was smart to go to the National. I hate to say it, I just think like the common man. So I went to the most famous National when there was 6 hours lines outside, people paying $500-$600 just for a bag of promos. And that was the '91 Anaheim National. That was a crazy time. So that was my first ever National. And then from that point on, I believe I went from 92, 93, I think 96. Like I went to St. Louis, Houston, a bunch of Nationals. And then when I went to work for Upper Deck, I went to probably in that 10-year span of 4 or 5 National. Now I get confused because at that time there was something known as Chicago Sports Fest, which came like a month or 2 months in June before the National. And I opted out of the National because it was always a busy time for me at National because the NBA photo shoot was around that same time. So I had to go to the NBA photo shoot, meet the rookies, introduce ourselves, and then secure assets like, photo shoot jerseys and autographs and really lead the team there. So it's kind of hard to just go to the National and go to that directly. So I didn't go to a lot of the Nationals during my tenure at Upper Deck or even at Panini. But since I joined GTS as a distributor, I've been to every single National since because it's about a time to network with your customers and network with other people, vendors, and everyone else.
Did you have one? So you went in the '90s as kind of like a common collector. 2000s, you were working at Panini and Upper Deck, and I mean, you guys that were a National, there wasn't a Panini or an Upper Deck booth, and then now you're at GTS, you work as kind of a vendor. Client services.
Right.
You have a favorite location or favorite National that like really sticks out, like a year that you went, you're like, this left an impression on me?
So the '91 National was something to really embrace because at that time it was like pro set. I mean, I went to a pro set dinner. It was a banquet dinner style dinner. It was hosted by Roy Firestone. If you remember Roy Firestone, he's a great MC. He's very, just talented in being an MC. I never thought that because all I saw was his interviews back on ESPN back in the day. So he was there. Muhammad Ali showed up. Emmitt Smith was at the National. Pele was at the National. It was a who's who of every National. I know that you guys talked to Mr. Mark Sablo from Bleecker, and he talked about what the National was. That National was a spectacle. That one was the granddaddy of them all.
Muhammad was signing for Pro Set at the time. I mean, he had awesome Pro Set Muhammad Ali autographs. You could take a look at them. There's a whole bunch. Some signed Cassius Clay, some signed Muhammad Ali. Take a look on eBay for those that are out there. They're pretty cool Pro Set autos. But Karvin, before you move away from the '91, it's a perfect way to ask because you're one of the few people out there who's done this, right? Who's been there. And I draw a correlation to what we have going on now to what happened in the '80s when Upper Deck came and expanded and Score. And then you mentioned Pro Set. Bowman was its own Topps brand, Fleer, Donruss. I mean, like, it was just exploding in those in early '90s. And I say, all right, well, that popped and then it kind of fell off. And we always like to ask what inning we're in. We're not going to do that to you. I'm not going to insult your intelligence with that. But seeing how big the National and therefore the hobby was in '91, is it fair to say that we still have room to grow? That the National you were just at pales in comparison to the size, grandeur, spectacle that was the '91 National in Anaheim?
Oh, definitely. The '91 National, like I said, it's a spectacle. And it wasn't even just the big companies. There was also like Big Bob's back then. It was Wildcard had a big booth. I mean, all these new companies, the names are coming back now. This old is new now. So, but yeah, Pro Set was one of the biggest names out there. And there was like hologram cards, like actual holograms and ticket stubs, phone cards. It was just Action Pack had a big presence. That's where Emmett Smith was signing. I'm a Cowboys fan, so seeing Emmett there was great as a rookie. I think it was his first year after his rookie season in '90. But with that said, there is room to grow. But I mean, one thing about the National was based on 2020 National. They were still basing everything going from 19 to 2020. So it's a little bit of a transition time for the National, because I think they were just trying to get the show going. They had something 8 weeks or 9 weeks to get it going, and then they only confirmed it like 5 weeks prior. If they had a little bit more time, maybe it would have been a bigger deal. But then based on COVID numbers now, who knows what would have happened if it was like 2 months later anyways. So I'm glad it happened. I think next year they're probably going to spice it up a bit and definitely have that more of the spectacle that we're expecting.
Nice.
Showtime Lakers, the Dallas Cowboys when they were winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl. What's going on here, Karvin? You're from Toronto.
Well, okay, so let's go to my teams. I am a Toronto Raptors fan. I am a Toronto Maple Leafs fan and Toronto Blue Jays fan. So Dodgers and Lakers prior to the Blue Jays. Blue Jays came into existence in '77, and they were horrible. So you had to cheer for, as a kid, you want to cheer for a winning team, right? Cowboys, I'm not a big fan of anything Buffalo. Sorry to all my Buffalo friends, but it's just that I love the Cowboys because I was a kid. And the Cowboys were on always at 4:00 on CBS. And I used to watch NFL, I think Today or whatever, with Brett Musburger, Irv Smith, and I can't remember the governor's wife. She was on the show too. And Jimmy the Greek, of course, who can forget Jimmy the Greek? So I used to watch them all the time. And 4:00, like clockwork, every week is the Cowboys. And they were a good team. They faced it was the silver and white Cowboys versus the black and gold Steelers, right? So, So I became a Cowboys fan. I'm a huge Starbuck fan. I'm a huge Drew Pearson, going to Michael Irvin, Emmett Smith. I've suffered in the last 5 years like Cowboys, right?
You had Danny White and Randy White in between there. That was those were the lean years of the Cowboys. Yeah. But so they're America's team. Who knew they were actually Canada's team too? I mean,
well, I don't know if they're Canada's team or my team. So there's a lot of Buffalo fans in Canada. So I was not a Jim Kelly / Thurman Thomas fan. That team, I was always a bit like Cowboys fan. Lakers, just because I love the style of play. Showtime, just Magic was one of my favorite players. I love to say that Magic is better than Michael, but we all know the truth. Michael's the GOAT. Magic is just one of the best distributor out there, but a great personality. Magic has one of the most memorable personalities, colorful. He's always talking about stories. He's a great storyteller. Mm-hmm. Him and Kobe, that's what defines Laker stardom, is that both those players are great storytellers. I love that. I love storytelling, as you guys know firsthand.
Were you amazed by Kobe's transition? And I know, like, you brought up Kobe, I wasn't going to go there, but Kobe had famously had the deal with Panini that he left the NBA, and a lot of people talk about how difficult it is to transition from the NBA to the real world. And in 2 years, he built Granity Studios, won an Oscar for Dear Basketball. Mm-hmm. I didn't even expect to go here, but just along those lines, did Kobe have a special place in your heart too, Karvin?
Obviously, I met so many athletes, and it's always like, hey, my name's Karvin. I'm from Upper Deck. I'm from Panini, and we shake hands, and the conversation's kind of there, right? The only athlete, one of the only athletes that really just captured my attention was Kobe. I walked into a meeting with him and Rob Pelinka, and I was like, okay, here we go. We're going to present to an athlete. So realistically, I'm presenting to the agent, which was Rob at the time. Mm-hmm. And Kobe, I walked in. I didn't get invited to lunch. I came in after lunch, and Kobe's having a cookie or whatever. I'm like, oh, there's Kobe. He'll just be on the side, just watching everything, and who knows how engaged he is. Well, little did I know I was absolutely wrong. He finished his cookie, finished his drink, and then he starts just going, all right, I want you guys to tell me everything about card collecting. What's the grassroots? How do I improve my ranking amongst all the athletes? I mean, he's probably the GOAT of all self-promoters, not in a narcissistic way, but in just promoting his brand. He knows how to promote his brand. He knows how to charm you. He was telling us what he was doing with China. Like after every game that was broadcast in China, he would sit down for an hour and take Q&A sessions from the Chinese reporters and also from fans. If it was possible, he would actually do a Q&A. So Kobe is more beloved than Yao Ming in China, believe it or not. Maybe not to the average person that's not a basketball fan. For a basketball fan, Kobe was number one. Also, iconically, he wore the number 8. If you know Chinese culture, number 8 means fortune. So he was like the first ever player to wear number 8 that transcended that number into Asian culture. Even though it might not have been on purpose, he did so by doing that. So, I mean, just the ideas that is in his mind, why he used the name, self-proclaimed nickname of Black Mamba, all that kind of stuff, all the stories around that is just amazing. I mean, we can do a whole show just on Kobe alone. The fact that a year later, when I met up with Kobe in the office, he still remembered my name. That speaks volumes of who he is, or who he was. Sorry.
Can you
Kobe, Yao Ming, both big in China, but I also am big in China. I was on the news in China, Karvin. Maybe you didn't know that. I mean, it was a great one. It was lots of great captions from our guests. Go ahead, Andrew. I didn't mean to interrupt. But, I mean, we talk about who's big in China. I'm huge in Australia, but I'm growing in China.
You're growing in the Chinese culture. No, Kobe.
We'll bring you there. We'll get the lineups for you to all the women that want to meet Hoop Cages and all the fans for sure.
What did you, if you could, like 60 seconds, when Kobe asked you, what are the grassroots? How do I help, my brand grow in cards next to the other guys? What did you guys say to that?
Well, obviously we talked about grassroots, about kids collecting, and that's important to him. The passing on the hobby or passing on his brand to the legacy for the younger kids makes a big difference for what he wanted. One of the things that we said, he said, who controls like the ranking of athletes? And when we said, well, there's this company called Beckett in Dallas. He goes, do you think a dinner with all the wannabes at Beckett, would that make a difference in my ranking? I go,
good luck getting that.
So that type of thing. But I mean, some of the ideas that he had, like at that time, he didn't call it the Kobe Bryant Foundation. He called his foundation was called On Vivo, and it meant life in Italian. We all know that he speaks Italian fluently. And one of the first things, like he said, well, what do you want me to do with Upper Deck? And I was like, well, meet and greets. He goes, meet and greets are just overrated. So he goes, but here's my vision. He said, for the first thing I did on Vivo, I hope I'm saying it right, was to take 50 Latino kids from the urban city, from LA, and 50 African Americans, and brought all 100 kids to a month-long tour of Italy. He wanted to teach them culture. That's what he wanted to do. And that just speaks how different he thinks in terms of what he does. But we can get into Kobe. That's a pretty...
I didn't know we were going to go Kobe, but Cage knows how excited I am because I was telling on the Zablo episode how much Kobe meant to me as well. I know his family, there's no more Panini signings with Kobe, right? Or are they still able to release, let's say he signed stickers in the past. Are they still able to release those?
That I don't know all the details. Obviously, that's between Panini and the Kobe Bryant family, or Vanessa. If they obtain rights, I'm sure they could feature some sticker autographs for him if they truly have those, and then probably get approval from the family to do so. So that's what I would assume, but I'm just speculating now.
Listen, Andrew, if we're allowed to, because I'm going to let you take the last 20 minutes or so about the national and stuff. I just have 3 questions that I wanted to ask Karvin that I try to get out of save at the end. But it seems like a good bridge. We can move off of Kobe and into national. But so Karvin, if you don't mind, right? Just because we're talking about like the card making and that kind of stuff, right? And your experience with the athletes and stuff. Who had the worst signature on a card that you ever saw? Who just did like a lazy line, you name it? I mean, so who's worse than Giannis now? You got 47 letters in your name. You only signed 2. Who was the worst one you ever saw?
Well, I mean, there's countless examples. I don't want to name names here. I mean, we all know one that has squiggly lines. We know ones that just have one letter, like an A. One has a straight line.
He's too nice. Carvin's so nice. So I'll say this. So I'll swing it to the other way and give you a chance to maybe play a compliment. Right. It doesn't have to be a big name or anything like that. But who kind of surprised you? Who was like the biggest surprise? Nice guy. Someone who you might have thought was going to be like standoffish. I mean, obviously you were surprised about how engaged Kobe was. You thought you would just be pitching to an agent. But was there somebody you met with and you were like, wow, like this guy, he was really nice. Kobe was one great example because he remembered your name next meeting. But what's another?
So one of the first events I went to was the photo shoot, football photo shoot in 2002. And I'm sure you guys have seen how we do the rookie photo shoot jerseys or the photo shoot jerseys, right? They put them on and then take them off. So it was interesting. The first draft class that I went to attend was actually, I believe it was 2002 class. It was in the Rose Bowl, I believe, the event. And I got the jerseys. Like, okay, Karvin, you take Julius Peppers. I'm like, oh my God, Julius Peppers. This guy was absolutely cut. He's 6'7" or 6'6", right? And I was just like, Julius, sort of asked this from you, but can you take them? They're wearing their jerseys already. They had their shoulder pads. I go, can you just take off your jersey? And he goes, yeah, sure, no problems. So he takes it off, but it's kind of tough to take off the jersey. Sometimes they have to take the whole entire shoulder pads off, and they do that. And then, he was like, oh, what do you want me to do? So I gave him the jerseys. I go, please pull them down, hopefully we can rub off some sweat off you. All that I put on the jersey, and he was like the nicest person that I ever met. Like for a guy coming into a card company, going to your first event, and seeing an athlete like Julius Peppers, you're like, oh my God, I'm kind of intimidated. This guy's 6'6", cut and all his muscles, and he could just squash me like a peon, right? And meanwhile, he was just one of the nicest guys I ever met. So my first interaction was great on the football field. I know it's not one of my sports, but just going to that event was kind of fun. And seeing all the background. I mean, if you guys get a chance to ever attend one of those, it's incredible. Like the stations they have, back at Upper Deck, they had a big mat, and these players just jumping like 4 feet off the air, like flying through the air and landing on the mat. I know in the basketball photo shoot back before I joined, they actually had a trampoline, and these guys were jumping into the sky and taking shots with the clouds. That's why you have all those old Upper Deck cards with the cloud in the background.
It's pretty cool. So, I mean, I know you didn't do football, but I mean, I used to, when I collected in the 90s, Upper Deck did like Pro Bowl. And they also had the rookies come there, and a lot of pictures. Remember Robert Edward, which is not the auction house. So I remember his card. He's on the beach. He's catching football on the beach. Wearing just like a bathing suit. And I'm like, I wonder who gets to film these. Like that's a cool photo shoot. That's a cool event to go to. You ever get to go to any place fun?
Well, the photo shoot started in the Pro Bowl, and then afterwards they moved it to Orlando. I think the Mike Vick year they had it in Orlando, and then after that they moved it to LA. So it's at the Rose Bowl or the Coliseum. Most of the times in those two spots now.
All right. So the last question I had for you is this. All right. You got to make some of the most iconic cards out there. Cards that sell for 7 figures now. We're talking about Exquisite. We're talking about the Cup. We're talking about some amazing cards, right?
Right.
If Upper Deck, Panini, Topps, if they all got together and said, you know what? Doesn't matter what sport it is. Doesn't matter what brand it is. Doesn't matter what release it is. Karvin is the OG legend card designer and maker out there. If they all got together and in one phone call, one conference call, said, Karvin, we're going to let you come back this year, and we're going to let you design a card. Any sport, any brand, any product, any release. A whole new thing if you need it to be. What would you do? What's one card you would make that's not out there?
It's hard to say because, all the athletes, everything open. I actually wouldn't even go into sports.
Oh.
I might just do something completely outside of sports. I mean, there's the celebration, like for example, presidents, you can celebrate presidents all day long. I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily sports. I worked in the sports and I've had that canvas to work with athletes. I would love the opportunity to have a blank canvas and completely outside the box and do something different,
Wow.
and I don't know what it would be, but I mean, I would have to give it some thought. Well, I kind of know like certain subjects I would probably do, but
He knows he doesn't want to share it. He doesn't want to give away his idea right now because he still might be able to do it one day. Listen, guys who are out there who do historical cards, somebody who's making to give Karvin a ring. I think he's got some ideas in there he doesn't want to share.
It would be cool to have one of the papers that the president signed when he first gets inaugurated as a part of the card. That would definitely be cool. I'll give you a different canvas, Karvin. Let's say you're made CEO or commissioner of the National. What's one or two things you'd like to see changed? That's like kind of legacy that's been going on since 1991. That if you were put in charge, you'd be like, this needs to be more modern, or this needs to be more creative, or this could be more artistic. What would you do?
So the one thing I'm pulling back, a lot of my ideas were really motivated or inspired by things that happened in the past, and we can talk about that another time about some of the cards. Obviously, I think that one aspect, because if there's so many new people in the business, so many new businesses that support trading cards, I think it would be good just to have a corporate night. No dealers, no marketplace, none of the transactional cards, and just have all the corporate people. So you have the PSAs, you have the Beckett's, you have Bleecker as a media company, not so much the store, but more of the media company. And then, everything else like HGA, Card Score, eBay, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, all these companies to have giveaways to just the corporate night. And once again, it's really more of a mixture to get to know people. Hopefully the attendance will be probably less, have less tickets, and it becomes like almost a cocktail type mixer, like just a banquet type corporate event, so that people get to meet each other and have more opportunity to talk about business or just meeting people. Because once you allow everyone else to come in, I mean, I'll walk the floor, and within 10 minutes of talking to someone, which I'll talk to 15, 20 minutes, I'll walk another 20 steps, and then someone wants to, talk, and you don't get to meet all the people that you wanted to meet. I think with that corporate event, maybe it's invitation only, or maybe it's a VIP, super VIP event where it's just meeting the corporates. So that way you remove all the transactional cards. It's more like an industry night type thing. I would recommend that.
Some of the general feedback was, a lot of dealers had big signs saying buying, but there wasn't a ton of buying going on. Mm-hmm. Walking on concrete all day was really hard.
Yeah.
Some people love Rosemont, some people didn't. The average age of the collector at the National was 15 years younger. What was your impression? What did you take away from this year's National with what I think, and I'm not sure if this is true, with record almost attendance? I heard up somewhere 50,000 people showed up, maybe more. What was your impression of it?
Well, for me, it's always about the people. The National is about the people. I don't go to the National to buy cards. I can buy cards all day online. I can buy it through other smaller shows. The National is for this time after the year of the pandemic, or we're still going through the pandemic. It's really just, hey, I haven't seen you for 2 years. People on my own team at GTS Distribution, people that I've worked with at Panini and worked at Upper Deck, and then new people that we haven't met. Like prior to this, all three of us never met, and that was a good opportunity to get, even though I probably overstepped my boundary and did bro hugs instead of fist pumps, I think it was good to put a face to people and get some face time, and I think that was important at this National. That's why I felt that, it was almost like a relief, a sigh of the social atmosphere. And then, of course, all the parties and the get-togethers afterwards. And I think it was a great time in that sense. Everything is true. The age is definitely skewed a lot younger. And there's a lot of younger people that are in the business, which is a great sign. In fact, I feel that in some cases, in the past, we always say, let's get the fathers to convince their kids to collect. This is the first time where I actually think might be the opposite, where the kids are now pulling the fathers back into it, realizing their son is having so much fun and they can connect to him because it brings back nostalgia. So their kid is bringing nostalgia back to them, and now they're collecting as well. So we're seeing more of that. Definitely those Pelican briefcases, the slab briefcases, slabs are everywhere. Slab was not a big thing 2 years, 3 years ago, but it's everywhere now. That's why everyone coins the junk slab era these days. I don't necessarily believe in that, but there is a lot of slabs. So imagine if the weight of all the cards in the room was, let's say, 5 tons. I think slabs just created to 10 tons now. It's double the weight of all the cards in the National. So, but
probably double the value of them too.
Right.
Yeah.
Double the value, even higher, right? So. Yeah.
So, but speaking of that, right? I mean, there are things that don't change about the National. A lot of ungraded, a lot of vintage, a lot of stuff, sitting around there. But what did change is, are you amazed by the sheer volume of breakers in the hobby now, just that have popped up in the last couple of years? I mean, from a GTS distributor standpoint, I think you got to think that's a great thing, and I think that's kind of where the hobby's heading. And I mean, I'll throw in just this. That was the exciting thing. I've said this a couple of times on 10 for 10. For people who have. You heard the yelling, you heard the whoa, they got this, that was like the cool, like, whoa, jackpot moment that that the show didn't really have outside of that breaking area. You see that kind of growing, Karvin?
Well, the breakers have grown tremendously. I mean, back in 7 years ago, breaking was just a minute portion of the business. Now it's growing faster and faster, right? And I think that, I'm not so sure if there's going to be more breakers. There may be, but obviously, when there's more, the better ones and the more structured ones will rise to the top, and we'll probably see more of that happening. And I think that adds to the fun level. That's why those rooms are so active. Now, in the past, I would never thought that breaking would ever take off, because when I sit down and open a box of cards, I didn't want people opening it for me online, and that's the way I felt when I was at Upper Deck or at Panini. I was like, man, that ruins the fun. The whole fun is basically when you get to slow roll it myself and see the possibility of hitting something big. It's like being, when you're looking at, let's say, Baccarat. If you ever watch people play Baccarat, you see that they bend the corners. Look at how many emblems there are, how many of the spades there are, or they bend it all the way and they ruin the card. It's almost on purpose. They ruin that card when they play Baccarat. Not the mini Baccarat, but the Baccarat where the guys get to see their own cards. And they kind of slow roll everything or tease themselves. So same thing I like to do when I open a pack of cards. I see, oh, it's a different colored border. Oh man, this could be something big. You tease yourself. You're like, what could possibly be the card, right? Then you look at, you look at the name, or not the name, the team name or the position. You're like, oh, that could be it. That could be the big card, Then all of a sudden you pull the Jason Capono versus LeBron James and
exactly.
Jason Capono.
And you bend the corner like a Baccarat card. You go, oh my God, Capono, I'm bending the corner.
You're gonna bend it and destroy it. Yeah.
Throw this one against the wall.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's that aspect, but now people take it, the instant gratification. They don't mind someone else seeing their cards. I get almost kind of upset when people are like, oh my God, like, something huge is coming. I'm like, why don't you just show us the card and we can share that moment together, instead of you taking, all the fun out of it and saying it's a huge card, because what may be a huge card for you might not be a huge card for me, right? So, so those are the aspects that I like. But
I think break-in's got to be a necessary evil, though, right? I mean, it's part of. I mean, look, you got National Treasures coming out this week, right? Like the average person is not going to be able to break a box or a case of National Treasures, but breaking allows them to do it, right? Breaking allows them to, buy a player or buy a team or get into a random, get into a slot, get in a mini, then buy, they're not going to have that box at home, but they're able to watch the break. You're able to, get in your player and get lucky that way of doing it. That's kind of evolved. That's been the big change. And I guess from a distributor standpoint, it's got to be a good change.
Let's put it this way. Even though there's more increasing number of LCS, it might take you an hour to get to an LCS, especially if you're in a suburban area or a rural area. So the whole aspect of breaking going online is basically taking the store to you. Right. And that's the difference. And we always call it disruptive technology, and breaking is a form of disruptive technology in our business.
So Karvin, you know what I think, right? So everyone loves fractional right now, right? Everyone loves fractional. You can get the best assets by doing fractional. I've never heard anybody say this, but I think breaking was the first form of fractional. You could do your own box yourself, but I mean, if you want to get into an asset, you want to get into a National Treasures or one of these boxes that you can't afford buying the whole thing for yourself, you're basically doing a fractional share, with a little bit of a gamble to it, because you never know what that box is going to hold. But that's you can get in as a piece of it, get in, whatever you're able to buy player wise. So it's kind of a cool thing. Crowdsourcing.
Yeah, definitely, because you're taking a case of cards and you divide it by 30 teams, or you're dividing it by 10. If there's 10 cards in a box, then hit drafts, same thing. You're buying into 1/10 of that box. So it is fractional.
Something we heard on I don't remember who said it, but it was a really interesting idea, and I wanted to ask you. So it was a concept of sub-licensing, right? So a lot of people want to see more creativity, more design, more interesting releases in sports cards. But Panini owns NBA, Topps owns baseball. There's Leaf does its own thing, but seeing some, and Cade could kind of help me because I'm new to the releases, but I don't know if you remember the episode that someone brought that up, and I thought it was an interesting idea. Karvin, you've worked with Upper Deck, you've worked with Panini, now GTS, you work with Topps. Is sub-licensing and adding creativity to the designs, the creation process of the cards, is that feasible? Is that possible? Am I even making sense?
Karvin, what he's saying is, could there be a deal struck between Topps and Panini, where Panini gets some limited ability to put out an MLB licensed product that is able to do a National Treasures, so that you're able to have that National Treasures RPA of some of the young guys? Can Upper Deck get in and get a sub license and get some exquisite again? Can Topps get some basketball? Maybe we bring a Topps Chrome refractors back to the stuff. I mean, part of paying for the license and the exclusive is so that you don't have somebody competing with you. But the idea was, could they have some carve out, some limited work together?
So let me change the narrative and ask you the same question, right? So let's say Jeremy Lee, who's on Sports Card Live, and I know you guys know each other. Would you want to do a collaboration with him, and then all of a sudden he gets more, his brand grows bigger, and your brand, you may lose viewers to him? I think that's what I would look at it. If
yes.
I was right,
100%. 100%. Yes. And we had him on. We interviewed him this past weekend.
Okay.
And just real quick, I was going to make this at the end of the episode. I should have done in the beginning. The reason today's interview is so different than our typical ones is I recommend you guys who want to hear about Karvin's story. Jeremy did an amazing interview. It was last year when COVID just started. It was April 19th. It was Sports Card Live #2, where he got a whole background. That was an hour and a half of your story. So why I didn't want to dig into today's story was because Jeremy did it. So I have no problem collaborating because I think we grow the pie together.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, okay. Then
the rising tide, Karvin.
But let me change the narrative here. Like, will Apple and Microsoft work together? Like, the big companies, when we're talking about, we want to promote our own brand. So, for example, there's similar like brands that if you like Exquisite, people buy NT now. If you like Chrome, you buy Prism, right? For basketball. To a certain degree, Andrew, I mean, there is some nostalgia for the Exquisite brand, and there's some, nostalgia for the Chrome brand. But I mean, there is like brands. And for me as a company, why would I sub-license? And if I was running a company, why would I allow someone to come in and steal my thunder then? Because then it just has more of the momentum of they want that company. And, the one thing that I've learned that, being at Upper Deck, when we had the NBA license, numbers obviously weren't doing as well back in the 2008, right? And had the support been so strong back then, I'm sure Upper Deck would still be a licensee, right? But unfortunately, the license went away for Upper Deck. And now when you look back on it, you're like, wow, look at all these nice cards. What you don't have sometimes is what you treasure more. It's always, grass is always greener on the other side. So I think, while we sit here and we say that we long for those times, we long for those days, hey, you can support it by buying those cards. Obviously, Upper Deck doesn't benefit. Topps doesn't benefit from all the Topps Chrome sales, but you can still support the hobby by buying those cards. But always be open to new products by Panini, open to new products by any company that that appeals to you. And if the license do change hands in the future, then when you can start all the rumors, we can hear all the rumors, but until it becomes fact, that's when we have to change our collecting habits and adapt to it.
Black Beauty. So Cage might not know what that means, but Karvin, I saw a reaction. You know what that means?
It's a horse.
Yeah,
Black Beauty.
The novel, yes.
Yeah.
Karvin, talk to us. Talk to us about Black Beauty, because that you guys out there that don't know, before there was Exquisite, it could have been called Black Beauty. So tell us that story.
Well, it wasn't Black Beauty; it was just Beauty Black.
Beauty Black. Sorry.
Yes. No worries. It is beautiful. Black is beautiful. Well, I'm wearing black right now, so I didn't even know you were going to ask me this question. A couple things. I like black. Obviously, I'm Chinese or Asian. If you guys want to be more general, I'm Asian, but I'm Chinese. So a lot of the things that I did actually has a reflection and tributes in my life and what I like. Black was a great color for me because when I used to go to like Chinese parties and back in the day, everyone wore black. So I know that it's in our culture. I don't know, for some reason we love wearing black. I'm overweight. Black slims you, so it slims you down, so it makes me look a little bit more slimmer. You never see me wear white because white does the opposite, right? It's like a camera. So those are two aspects, but ultimately I always look at black as being a very luxury type brand, right? When you think of like, mahogany or dark wood, everyone likes dark wood. Everyone likes black sleek cars or sedans or limos. You never see a green limo, right? You never see that. It's usually black and tie affair, right? It's always a classic type look. So when I was looking at the one thing of most luxurious brand was American Express. Platinum was the big card back in the 90s. And if you had a platinum card, you were a player, you were a baller. And everyone knew that. Unfortunately, American Express allowed the opportunity for people to get a platinum card by spending, I think it was like $3,500 for a membership, and you would get a platinum card. Well, then at that point, everyone that wanted to be a player or a baller got the membership and got a platinum card. So it became overwhelming. So that's when American Express went to a Black Centurion card. So if you look at the timing of that Black Centurion card, that was only given to people that spent over $1 million. The fees were outstanding, like over $15,000 or $20,000 just to get into that black card. And if you look at it, that came out in 2002, right before Exquisite was ever produced. So I looked at something very simple, high-end. The name Black just made a lot of sense. And I even had marketing ideas of like, Upper Deck would take a one-page ad in Beckett and just have a black page for 1 month. And the next month would be like maybe a glossy or a much more darker black. It would be the Upper Deck logo, and it says it's coming, right? That's what I wanted to do, like something of that nature. If you look at the boxes, actually, believe it or not, see, I have an Exquisite solicitation right here, right? So black is a very prominent part of Exquisite. The box itself, the outside box is black, right? So definitely all the plans was to call it Black until like it was struck down by an ex-executive of Upper Deck, and we didn't call it Black. And I had 2 days to change the name, and I went on Exquisite. So here's a little bit of information that a lot of people don't know. The reason why it was called Exquisite was a concept card that was supposed to be part of Exquisite. It has yet to even make it to market. That concept has been stored under wraps for 17 years and have not come out. Now, whether it is a big hit or not, I don't know, right? But part of the reasoning for Exquisite, so I'll show you the box right now. I don't know if you guys have seen the box. I got this from a dealer a while back. He gave it to me for free, so I got a box back. This is the original box, all right, right there. It's a wooden box, plexiglass top. Well, the whole idea of the first box was it was going to be all plexiglass, similar to like a jewelry case. So now the Exquisite actually means more of an adjective for jewelry. And I wanted a full plexiglass box with an air pillow with a pack floating on top of it. That was what I had wanted initially. So that's, it kind of appeals, like packaging appeals more to, I believe, women than it does men. But I wanted almost like, when women open a box, a Jimmy Choo shoes, it's the whole experience of opening that box. And I want that experience for people that bought Exquisite.
Which did Panini or did Upper Deck offer more creative freedom? Which company empowered you? Okay, did you ever open Exquisite?
No.
I opened one box. I had a sample box. The only box of Exquisite I ever opened was the first year. And then afterwards, I did go to the National, and multiple collectors allowed me the opportunity to open their box. So, I guess I was the first online breaker or adjacent breaker at the time.
I saw many boxes opened in Chameleon Cards in Manhattan downtown. It was the closest store to Wall Street, and a lot of the stockbrokers would come out of the stock exchange and go over there at lunchtime and be like, "All right, let's go. We got our bonus or whatever it is. Let's open a box or two of these." I saw Carmelo, RPA get pulled once. I didn't see a LeBron get pulled. I saw Carmelo, which at the time I was like, "That's the card. Forget about this LeBron guy." Carmelo.
Well, I actually walked into, we did the photo shoot, and this product came out before the photo shoot, and I walked into the NBA store, and the NBA always gets boxes for the NBA store, and they actually opened the box and showcased the cards, and I was talking to the guy that I guess was displaying the box, and I said, "Why would you guys open the box?" He goes, "We didn't even know it was, like, we thought there were going to be packs, but there's no packs, it's just the cards inside." And I said, and what's funny was that it was a $500 sticker on the box. That was an SRP of $500. And they had a D Wade rookie. And I was like, man, I should buy this box. But D Wade at the time was only going for $300. I go, it's not really worth it. Boy, was I wrong, right? So I wish I bought that box now. The D Wade rookie is worth quite a bit more now.
So you then moved over to Panini. Which company, and it might not be more or less, but talk to us about like the creative freedom, right? Because a lot of times when you're creating cards and making cards, I think there needs to be room to fail, room to not create a great design, test, iterate, try.
Right.
Talk to us about those experiences, Upper Deck and Panini.
I think both places allow creative freedom. I mean, at the end of the day, we work on so many different sets anyways. There's some opportunities to try things and then see if it sticks, right? What we're looking for is, some ideas that sticks. And I think on both sides, obviously we being, so I opened a lot of boxes back in the 90s. Panini has a lot of Beckett employees that they open boxes and they can, they're good critics of cards that, card values. So I think all of our ideas are kind of inspired by previous ideas that we see in the marketplace, and they've done a good job in being creative. Upper Deck, obviously the tenure that I was there was a long time. I was there for 10 years. So with that being said, I had a little bit more free reign because of my time spent at Upper Deck. But both companies offer creative freedom. So I mean, I think you have to, as long as it makes sense. And at the end of the day, both companies are at profit companies. They're for profit. So as long as your P&Ls work and the product sells through, then obviously that's the main situation. You want it to be profitable. You want to sell through your products. So creative freedom is always there. If it wasn't for creative freedom, then things like Kaboom or Color Blast or those type of ideas would never come from Panini, right? Kaboom was an idea that, hey, could it work? Could it not work? Well, it stuck and it worked, and until today, I mean, there's a lot of Kaboom collectors now.
Cage, what if you were an exec in that room when someone pitched you Kaboom?
I'd say Cano. Robinson Cano. No, but I mean, listen, it is what
Stop
it is.
trying to make fetch happen, Karvin, he would say.
That's what I would say. Listen, people love Kaboom. People love Kaboom. I mean, didn't Steph Curry 101 sell for like $60,000, right, or something like that, right? So
Yeah,
Steph Curry 101 sold for $60,000. So that means the gold one is, what is that, out of 10? It's got to be worth $250,000 if the green one's 101 sold for $60,000, right? I mean, it's just simple math. I'm just kidding, Karvin.
So it depends, and it all depends on the ratio too. I'll show you a card here that I did for a low-end product for kids on hockey, and even though it's not exactly the same of how it looks on Kabooms, but this is a card that I bought for like 50 cents on eBay, and it was basically hockey players that are featured as superheroes. So the idea was, this was actually inspired by the whole Agent 23 and Birdman card.
Yeah, I
right?
remember that one. Yep.
Yeah. So Warriors of Ice. This is from Choice Pocket, Collector's Choice, right? So this is these are ideas that we're trying to look at cross-pollinating different sectors of our hobby. So comic books into trading cards, or toys into trading cards, and now we're talking about NFTs and digital collectibles and video games now getting into trading cards. So I think the whole idea is, while we're trying to develop products, we're also trying to get to a point of more engagement with other communities, other collectors, because all collectors at the end of the day are we all have the same mindset. You got to trade for it. You got to get them all, catch them all, whatever you want to say. So we tried to cross-pollinate multiple different types of collectibles. So if you go to 0304, you'll see that the victory cards produced in 0304 had rounded corners to mimic what? Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon, right? That was the idea, to get kids from Pokemon to cross over into basketball cards. Needless to say, 2020, now sports card is the hottest collectible out there, bigger than anything else, which is shocking. And I always caution people to stop being negative. Just get rid of the negative narratives, because for 30 years we've been waiting for this day where everyone is into trading cards, and it is the coolest collectible now in the marketplace. We all knew it 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 10 years ago. Now everyone knows it, so that's great.
You know what's interesting with the negative narratives? How the card hobby, some of them have embraced NFTs, but some of them completely don't embrace NFTs. And from my perspective, NFTs should make the most sense to collectors, So because like the one common theme is like, oh, this is just a JPEG. Well, a card is just a photo of your favorite athlete. So Karvin, what's your stance? Where do you stand on NFTs?
Well, I also seen disruptive technology in our card space, right? And that being breakers as one of them. I was not a fan of, let's say, the first ever the Kindle. I was not a big fan of the Kindle, all right? Because you can get comic books, you can get books, but I'm a collector. I want something tangible instead of just reading a digital copy of a book. I want to hold it, even though I know it's not really functional. if I'm working out, the spine gets in the way and my pages flip over and I got to crease the spine, which I like all my stuff mint, right? So it comes down to it is like, it's like, it doesn't make a lot of functional sense. Why not to go to a digital copy? But then the Kindle took off. From the Kindle, it became the tablet, into iPads, everything else, right? It was just it was a new technology that now bridged into a whole new sector of tablets or smartphones, if you want to talk about it, you know, to that degree too. So I never ever doubt disruptive technology anymore. I look at it as saying, is this a fad or is this the next big thing? And I'll look at NFTs the same thing. Is it a fad or is it the next big thing? Like when we look at kids today, 9, 10 years old, they're playing Fortnite, they're playing World of Warcraft, right? We've seen, you know, like pets in World of Warcraft goes for thousands of dollars. We've seen, you know, certain League of Legends, some of the digital equipment, the uniforms, people are paying tens of thousands of dollars for it. So that's the next level collector. But as I said, all collectors have the same mindset. My thing about, I don't worry whether you're an NFT collector, if you used to collect Beanie Babies or you collect comic books or toys or video games, you have that collector mindset.
I got all the above, Karvin. Everything you just named. I got them all. That's part of the problem.
Well, that's because we YOLO and we FOMO, right? That's what
right.
it's about. It's a lot of FOMO. But this is what I look at it. If you have that collector mindset, I still feel that trading cards or sports cards is the best collectible of everything. I'm confident of that. How many collectors have we seen from crypto, from everything else, the toys and everything, and now coming into trading cards? It is the most attractive or sticky collectible. So rather than me beating you up about how much you're doing the wrong thing, collecting, you know, NFTs or digital stuff, I'd rather say, hey, I'm glad you collect digital. I'm glad you collect crypto or toys or whatever. Have you ever checked out trading cards? Like, why not come over here and come into our category so we can have more engagement, have more users? It's not a big secret anymore. You open up Wall Street Journal, you open Forbes, you watch Fox Business News, Ken Golden's everywhere on the news. So you get to see him and say, wow, what's this trading card going for millions of dollars? The celebrities are coming in, the athletes are coming in. It is the cool thing to do now is collect cards. So take that narrative and make it and extend an olive branch and get them into trading cards. That's what I would say.
It's funny, Karvin, saying that, because every time I make money on an NFT, or every time I make a good move on an NFT, I think, all right, if I do a little more, I can buy this card. Like, I'm always looking to how much did I make on the NFT and how close am I to getting a physical card with the money I made on that NFT. It's so funny.
Yeah, by all means, you know, collect what you like. Like when I was growing up, people collected pet rocks.
Yep.
So that was a big thing, right? So I look at it as that, hey, if it makes you happy, if it fills your heart, just get rid of all the negativity and enjoy it, right? And at the end of the day, is it really about what we collect, or is it really about the community that you're involved with what's collecting? And for me, going to the National, I didn't buy one card. I looked at a bunch of cards, but I was looking for people to give the bro hugs to, people that network that we met over the last 2 years on virtual.
I like my hug, Karvin. If I got a fist bump after all the hours we spent together on Clubhouse, I would have been upset with you. So I'm happy with my bro hug.
Yeah. So for me, it was about meeting you guys, you know, taking pictures, you know, because one of the terminology people always say, they call things like casket cards. To be honest, I understand what you're saying, but I don't want to put $1 million card with me, right? I'd rather leave it for someone. In fact, I probably won't want to get rid of it before someone sells it for $10 versus $1 million. So, you know, a lot of times when these collections, maybe now today, people know when they inherit cards, they know there's a value, but a lot of times people didn't know and they just give it away to someone else. So, you know, truly, I don't think people want to look at casket cards. You got to have an exit plan too over time. And, you know, we came into this world without any cards, and we're going to leave this world without cards. But what we can leave is with memories and legacy. And that's all community is about. You know, I actually had this question I was going to ask you guys about. If you had the choice of either being completely lonely and not having any social activities, but had the best card collection, or would you, just to have social interaction, you would give up your card collection, but still interact with the card community? So you have one extreme to the other one, not owning any cards, but still engaged in the community, or owning some Grail cards and never engaging in the community. what would make you more happy?
I'm taking a second. I don't need the cards. I want the community. As a matter of fact, we talked about this, Andrew and I. I mean, like it obviously you want to have a happy meeting. You want to have the cards, be able to talk to people about the cards, be able to pick the cards and all that stuff. But 400 episodes in, a year and change of doing this now, Karvin, you're 100% right. You want to ask me what the highlight of my of the National was for me? It was meeting you. It was meeting the folks that I had never met before. It was not. I mean, I made some pretty large deals, and then I sold some cards. I bought some cards. I've added to my collection. I switched up my collection. That all paled in comparison to the couple of dinners. The kids who came up and wanted to take pictures. The one kid who I mentioned a million times who got a Panini pack and was telling me, "I'm going to list this on eBay," and that is the cool stuff. I mean, we had one family, Reckless Cards. I bring them up. I met the kids. We took a picture with the son, the daughter. That's the future of the hobby. That's the lasting legacy you're talking about. And you're right. I mean, when you go, you're not taking your Jordans with you. You are taking your memories with you. I mean, that's it. I'm with you. For me, that's an easy one.
If I could play contrarian,
sure. You want to be alone? Well, you are.
That's not what I'm saying.
You're stuck by yourself.
A lot of kids, and why I started this podcast was because 20 to 30, we don't have good, sound financial habits. And I think with cards, what we've seen is a lot of kids, a lot of 20, 30, 40-year-olds, 20, 25, 30-year-olds could get out of debt. They made some money last year. They now have some income. So no doubt why I was thinking about Karvin's question is cards have really helped change people's lives financially too. And finances are a part of life. Like you can only be free. You can only be a certain amount of happy when you're broke. And when you have a collection that's 100,000, 200,000, your debt's paid off, you've been able to buy a house, there is that certain level of freedom that I think we'd be naive not to at least see that happened in the last 18 months for quite a few people.
No, definitely. Over the past year or 2 years, we've seen a lot of cardboard millionaires. And, I don't frown upon people cashing out. Even some of the Grail collectors, they've cashed out. I mean, obviously, we see these Grail cards come up to sale and auction all the time, and they're cashing out. Or maybe they're cashing out to buy other cards. Really don't know the answer. But at the same time, I never frown upon people wanting to exit. I mean, you can talk. If I talked to my wife and I said, "Oh, my car's worth $3 million," and she was like, "Well, why do we still have a mortgage? Why don't we move into a bigger house?" Right? That's always going to be the question. So obviously, however you want to pivot, that's fair. You've done what you've done. Like one of the big collectors always, he reached out to me on Instagram. He said, "Karvin, I want to thank you for what you've done in the hobby." And once again, I don't like to take credit. I don't want to give credit. I like talking about stories ultimately. And he said, my collection's worth millions of dollars. You made me into cardboard millionaire. And I said, whoa. No, I did not make you into cardboard millionaire. I just created certain cards that was a platform. Who made you a millionaire is you. You kept on to the card. The card could have been worth $10,000 or $5,000. I would have sold them. It was up to me because I needed the money. But you didn't need the money, and you loved the card so much that you held on to them till today. And chances are you'll probably hold them even longer, not even cashing out. So he's the guy that made himself into a cardboard millionaire, not me. I'm just glad.
We literally had that exact same conversation with someone that we had on their show really early on. And we got to share his story. And at National, we got a chance to meet him in person. And he said that as well. He's like, "You guys put me on." And I said, "Man, we just provided a platform. You put yourself on. You've been disciplined. You've been able to build up such an amazing collection. And then you used our platform to go and meet people and reach more people." So right. I love that. I love, Cage, I love this episode. I knew it was going to be a little different. Guys, like I said, we only have an hour. Really, it was 45 minutes, except Karvin was really generous. So we're going to wrap up here. Why we went with this route for this episode, talking about National, talking about Upper Deck, Panini. Jay Lee did an amazing job. A really amazing job. And guys, I recommend if you can't have enough of Karvin, go right to Sports Card Live and listen to episode number 2. Jay Lee did an amazing job interviewing Karvin last year. So you get a whole background on Karvin. Any final questions, Cage?
No, man, this guy's great. We're going to have you back on, Karvin, as a non-national one. I mean, just tell some stories in the whole 9 yards. I mean, I stayed up till 3 in the morning or past 3 in the morning listening to stories from you and just chatting. I know our audience would do the same.
Well, we can always do a live stream if you want to go longer than an hour. I'm open to that.
Yes.
So, and you can field questions definitely from from everyone watching.
That'll be nice.
And I'll, if I can't answer it, I'll definitely say it's something I can't disclose.
You didn't make these, but you are a national treasure, Karvin.
Well, I appreciate it, but the true exquisite right now is my daughter, Little Exquisite. And so, but I mean, ultimately, I enjoy talking to collectors. I love telling stories, and I hate to say it, I probably love listening to my own voice. I mean, if I was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I probably wouldn't even get past the second question in an hour. So
I spoke very little on this episode, and there are only a few folks in the hobby that could get me to shut up and listen, and this is definitely one of them. Thanks, Karvin. Thanks for sharing everything with us. It really was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on, and anytime.